almost happened. I was so close that with the last possible second, I hit the banner button and it disappeared, and I got everything right. So John here, Jarrett there. Bases dropped on another round of soccer down here. I got the technology correct and all of the looping correct for a change and the order of the rundown to where you got to see us first and not a banner with me talking underneath it. But it's a Freestyle Friday. Got a lot of playoff stuff to talk about in Major League Soccer, in USL Championship, in USL League One. We've got all that stuff to talk about. Looking forward to our visit from our friends at Beyond Goals at the bottom of the hour. And because of that, the rundown might get a little Wall Pass Wednesday-ish today. Because of everything that is going on this weekend, because of our weekly visit where we get to talk really cool stuff with Michael Parkhurst and Greg Garza, we know that you guys want to talk about what was put out in your news feeds yesterday about one Joseph Martinez. And go ahead. That's what the Twitch pitch is for. We will get into it as the day goes along. And I know that, Jarrett, since you've only got like 20 minutes or so, I know that I'm going to kind of just eschew the opening kickoff and let this be the opening kickoff without any other normal topic, because I know that everybody wants to get into this idea. Lay it on me. What's going on?
Yeah, it sounds like, based on reporting, we are at the end of an era. It's something we talked about, man. That it sucks that we don't always in life, and especially in sports, get our storybook endings.
Yeah.
You don't always get Landon Donovan winning MLS Cup in his last season and then hanging him up. And it sucks, man, because it feels like we're literally my world's be set on fire. Yeah, it already is.
It already is.
No, yeah, Airborne. There's plenty of excitement things. Come on, there's plenty of exciting things to talk about. You know what the lead is here. The Phillies are in a World Series starting tonight. Come on.
Yes.
And Philadelphia Union plays Sunday. Apparently, Philadelphia, again, the epicenter of the sports universe. I'm not okay with that.
And the Eagles doing well in the NFC East, and the Flyers not at the bottom of the barrel in the National Hockey.
The Flyers are the Flyers.
Yes.
Until I'm told by Rich otherwise, I just ignore the Flyers.
There you go.
But yeah, it's man, it ultimately is. It ultimately is the end of an era, and Rack talks about it. The Sixers airborne. Hey, the Sixers are actively trying to get their coach fired. I appreciate the effort here. They looked at Joe Girardi getting fired by the Phillies and went, "That's the strategy. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get our coach fired a third of the way through the season to catch fire and make the NBA Finals." So Rack touches on something that I saw people getting mad about. And this is one of those things in life to me that it's not black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Because people, I think, in some instances felt like they were getting attacked for being upset one way or another about everything. And you can have complex feelings about this because you can feel like I do if you want to, which is it sucks that it is reportedly ending this way.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the right move because I feel like everything just kind of has led to this point over the last year plus.
Mm-hmm.
But it sucks that it is ending this way. And don't let anyone ever tell you you're not allowed to be upset about it or to have mixed feelings about it. You can be disappointed. You can be angry. You can be sad. You can be okay with it, however you want to be. But it's totally okay to have really mixed feelings about it, to feel like, hey, this feels like to me personally, this feels like the right move. It feels like everything has kind of led to that point, especially, and I know this is a pretty callous way to look at it, and a pretty ruthless way, but in a salary cap league, a guy making $4.1 million taking up one of your DP spots, if you don't think he's going to be able to be the guy he was, it's tough to keep him on that $4.1 million if he's not going to be able to give you, what he was in 2018, 19, 17.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of this conversation, and not just like the fact that there has been the he said, she said, flipping over the table in Portland, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you can put up with some things, but if they don't think he's going to get back to that, then yeah, you start making some really tough decisions. And I'm wondering if that's how this worked. Like this was a tough decision. Now the question then becomes like after he had arthroscopic surgery,
Yeah.
in an off season next year, what is he able to give you? Because if he's able to give somebody else a lot of minutes, that's a different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But then is it a matter of does he fit what you want to do here, which is somebody leading the press? And his pressing numbers were pretty bad this year, and I don't know if that's a matter of who he is now, or if that's a matter of coming back off arthroscopic knee surgery because his knee has been open more than it has been closed over the last 3 years.
That is absolutely true. And
but yeah, I'm disappointed it's ending this way. I didn't want it to. You wanted it to end with him spending his career here, getting an amazing send-off, a tear-filled send-off, a couple years down the road when he's in his 30s. And, man, that was like the dream that I think we all had, especially when you go back to the conversation a couple years ago when he signs, and it's kind of like, hey, Joseph's here as long as Joseph wants to be here. But, man, that doesn't seem to be where we're going to end up, and that sucks for all parties because it's not the way anyone wants it to end.
no,
I don't know, man. I'm bummed about it. Like that's where I'm at right now.
Well, I mean, considering everything that the Atlanta United fan base has experienced alongside Joseph Martinez and the team in general over the last, ever since everything started, you want to have those that you hold in high regard with you until it's time for them to go, and you want them to be at 100% the entire time. Braves went through it with Dale Murphy for a certain vintage. Braves went through it with Phil Niekro. And as we've always said, there are two folks that are undefeated, Father Time and Mother Nature. And when you have two surgeries, one to clean up your first, that kind of accelerates your career dissipation light. Joseph Martinez himself admitted in a press conference that he debated retirement because of how difficult the rehab was. And we always have those expectations. We always, as a fan, you always have those expectations of wanting to make sure that those who are mercurial get to stay with you forever. But there are points where, once again, you're looking at someone who's making over $4 million a year. You're looking at someone who cannot give you 90 minutes consistently, match in, match as it stands right now.
That for me is actually a very big question going forward, because that's where he is right now. I'm interested to see where he can end up, because if he can get back to that, that's a conversation that another team might deal with.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a matter of this is kind of who he is now,
mm-hmm.
then you start making conversations about, okay, if this is who he is, that may not fit what you're trying to do with this project. And if you want somebody to lead the press and he can't do it, then you got to make decisions. None of those decisions are fun, though. None of those decisions are easy.
FB Rep.
I certainly would understand the idea that, like, hey, I'm pretty sure whoever's making these decisions at the front office understands, like, the blowback that is going to come from this is going to be like nothing they've had to deal with yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's not I would assume it's not a light decision by them. Like we know what's going to come from this. We know it's going to be an absolute mess.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also, and this is a point that's being made in the Twitch pitch this morning. Once again, Atlanta United has said nothing about this. They have neither confirmed nor denied this. This is simply what is being said by The Athletic. And you can read into that whatever you wish. And there are some folks in the Twitch pitch who are reserving judgment on this situation until Atlanta United says something. And we have gone over the timetables for teams to say and do things when it comes to the postseason. So once again, reminder, your key off-season dates for 2023. The trade window opens up November 7. It's a 48-hour trade window. Then it closes on November the 9th. Blackout period begins then. You get the expansion protected list come out on the 10th. The expansion drafts on the 11th. Atlanta United has no bearing in that. Now, Monday, November 14th is the date that you've got to look at here. That is your deadline to submit bona fide offers and exercise options. That's your first marker here. Deadline to submit to the league office in writing all bona fide offers. You have to submit to the league which players will have their options exercised, which players will not. Free agency begins on the 16th. Re-entry, end-of-year waivers, that's 17th and the 22nd. Then you get into World Cup and all that kind of stuff. But keep an eye on the November 14th date. We've already seen some teams sit here and they've put out their names. They put out, okay, so-and-so, we're not exercising their option. We're exercising so-and-so. We're having discussions with this guy. We're pulling an option here, these kinds of things. Start looking at your November dates. And as we have discussed with other things, Jarrett, the front office of Atlanta United is not going to negotiate anything publicly. They're not going to sit here and tell you every step of the way, this is what we're doing with this particular individual. This is what we're doing with this particular vacancy. It is all done behind closed doors. And I think that the assumption should always be that, yes, something is going on, but until there is something to say concrete, Atlanta United is not going to say anything one way or the other involving a front office position, which I know a lot of folks have been talking about, or a player opportunity or a player eventuality, however you want to phrase it. It's not going to be negotiated in public by the team. What we have seen with this story in The Athletic is the flip side of that. That's what we're seeing so far.
And we'll see how it plays out. They're going to be team no leaks as much as possible. Obviously, they did not succeed in this brand of that team no leaks.
Mm-hmm.
But however it goes from here, I know you guys are lining up the Twitch pitch. I'm sorry, I'm not able to keep up with everything.
We'll go over
man. But to a couple of people's points, like some of this, you wonder if it's Joseph getting involved in the conversation, saying, okay, this might be the right time. Like, maybe he wants a clean break too. Mm-hmm. I have no idea. All we're left right now with is speculation and, like I said, tender feelings around. And I don't blame anyone for feeling that way because it was supposed to be the storybook that you're not getting now. Mm-hmm. And if he is gone, man, that frees up a DP spot for a striker. And
mm-hmm. Absolutely true.
You wonder where you're going to go with that. Because you should have a lot of choices, and especially coming off the World Cup, I wonder what prices will look like. Not that that's ever been a thing for them, but oh man, I don't. And people are talking about where he goes. Like, man, I don't know. This is a great question. Mm-hmm. Does he stay in MLS?
Yeah,
because like there's some situations I could see him being in MLS and doing good work in. And there's others where I'm like, I don't see him playing for a team that's going to like press super hard. Like, but if you want a team that's just going to play off the counter, then yeah, let's have that conversation. A team where he's not having to track back, where he's able to kind of, float around in the box.
Yeah.
I'm curious what that looks like. Does it look like that here in the United States? Maybe Mexico. Maybe he goes back to Europe to, I think someone in our Discord mentioned, could he be the kind of guy who ends up in something like, in a lower level Italian team going there where it's not as breakneck pace and he's able to poach opportunities.
Byrne just made that point. Yeah.
Yeah, may have been Byrne who made it in the first place. Yeah, I'm very curious. I'm very curious where he goes. Very curious what if all this unfolds the way we think it does. Do you get something for him? Do you end up buying him out? Like, I don't know. Yeah,
Well,
Ricky did come. He came from Torino.
mm-hmm.
He came from Torino on loan. His best success before he came here was I believe at Young Boys.
Efforting. Let me
I
look at
believe he did really well at Young Boys. Went to Torino, didn't click. Then he came on loan to Atlanta. I think that was he came here because Oscar Romero was supposed to come here, and China swooped in and got Oscar Romero at the last minute. And then Atlanta shifted their focus and got Joseph Martinez. And I remember when he got him, I remember thinking like, oh, Joseph's going to play on the wing, and Kim Wynn Jones is going to be your lighthouse forward. And then that didn't happen.
Yeah, so he started off at Caracas, 8 goals and 36 appearances. Young Boys, 4 and 37. Loaned to Thun, where he had 8 and 18. Then 7 in 58 matches with Torino. Loaned initially to Atlanta United, and that's when they picked him up for real. So, yeah, it was Young Boys and Thun before his time at Torino. And this is, we talk about this. Remember, you're looking at a cap situation. You're looking at a cap league, and you are looking at really amount of return. That's what you're looking at here. Is an individual worth X amount with the return that you're getting and the amount of minutes that you're getting and all of that stuff? And I think if you right now analyze any individual, I mean, take the nameplate off, and you sit there and you analyze output and salary in a cap league, then it is an instant question, considering availability, considering health, considering output, considering all of those external factors. I think if you were thinking about things outside of a cap situation, just on its surface, just away from everything else, if you looked at output versus cap, that's another issue there in and of itself. Is the amount of investment equal to the amount of return? And I think the answer right now is no.
So I'm hopeful, and I don't, without knowing the whole story here, I'm hopeful that we saw that what they were able to do with Carlos Carmona back in 2017 going into 18. Carmona had a unique situation. Ends up going to Colo Colo, back into Chile, finishes up his career there. I'm hoping they're able to do something with Joseph for that. Like, even as rocky as it has been reported over the last few months, I'm hoping they're able to come to an agreement about a place that he wants to go, a fee, and get him somewhere where he wants to be, where he can finish out his career comfortably.
Yes.
Because all the stuff that's gone down over since 2019, where it's been it feels like it's been rumbling since then with disagreements with managers, all that. Hopefully he is able to get somewhere he wants to be if it's not here, and hopefully they're able to make that happen.
Yeah, and that's the key here, and just trying to determine what you want to do is you want to do the individual a solid. And because you've established that reputation, as you've said, going all the way back to Carlos Carmona, where you want to do the player a solid, you want to do the family a solid, and because word spreads, word sits there and spreads internationally about an organization and how they want to, how they handle their players in situations. Like if somebody wants to go home, how do you address that? If somebody wants to go here, how do you address that? You try to do best by the player. And, we think about Carmona and Nagbe. Those are the top 2 examples here where Atlanta United's front office has tried to do as best as they could to give the individual in question a solid. So, you want to do what's best, because that information is always going to be out there in the ether about how you handle things. And so that's where you imagine Atlanta United and the front office and Joseph and his reps are at this particular point in time. We are making that leap going off of the information that came in the Athletic, that's where things are. You don't know what the timetable is, but you want to try to settle things in some kind of an order, considering the timetable that we talked about with all of those markers that are available in November after the season ends before the World Cup starts. So, that's where the front office is right now with we imagine where the front office is right now with everything with Joseph Martinez. So yeah, that information came out yesterday, and so obviously it had to be the lead story. That's your that's the lead story in a lot of different places, not just here.
Yeah, and because Bart asked the question, are they making, I think they are making a bet that he cannot be that player anymore,
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be the ultimate discussion here because, and it's going to be one of those things that's not necessarily black or white either, in my opinion, because what you're going to end up with is him going somewhere potentially where he's able to make things work.
Yeah.
And it might just be a different play style that he needs. It might just be a fresh start that he needs away from here.
Yeah.
And might be one of those things he's able to be that player again, but he might not be able to be that player again here. Sometimes you just got to get a clean break. And I'm wondering if that's part is him getting a clean break, give him a chance to kind of reset his brain as well, and we'll see what they do, because now what you have here is ultimately when you settle the dust of this,
Mm-hmm.
you have one of the biggest splashing clubs in MLS, if not necessarily for name recognition, but for willing to spend the money.
Yeah.
That now has the interest of burning a lot of cash on a striker position. And buddy, we don't have anything linked yet, of course, but when names start getting linked,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to get another round of silly season.
Oh, no doubt. And that's the thing. That's when you're in an off season and your team is not one of the final four in Major League Soccer, you're going to have everyone locally who is as invested as they are bring up issues and try to proffer solutions and sit there and say, okay, here's what I think, and here's what I think, and here's what I think, and that's what the discussions are all about with silly season. But yes, with Joseph probably being the number one discussion point. And once again, I say probably because once again, this is just something that has been proffered by the Athletic. It has not been confirmed by Atlanta United, and they are not going to do it. But, they're not going to confirm a story. They're going to continue to negotiate independently and, as they do, not publicly for sure. But that's the thing here, is that we have to just understand this is just one side. And yes, as things continue to ramp up, if information does come out even further, then you sit there and you work that much more and try to figure out solutions and locations and things like that. So, so that's where we are. And here's Bart's full element that you were referring to. And it's Michael Parkhurst for week number 3. We're gonna catch up with Parky here in just a sec for the Friday free kick. But Bart says, goals, assists per 90 declined every year. Not necessarily a bad thing, just very clear 3 years post-op. He's not the player he was when he first arrived in Atlanta. Question Atlanta has to ask is, can Joseph get somewhat close to that next season? I think they're making a bet he can't be that player anymore, and the player that he is now isn't worth the DP spot. This sucks, but is this untrue? And like I said, outlay versus output, and putting it in economic terms. Financial outlay versus output. That's the question that you're looking
Part
at.
of a salary cap league.
Exactly.
Got to be careful about how you spend in it. So it sucks. And hey, Don, just take the DP limits off. Teams want to spend, let them spend. Let them go hog wild.
Yes. So you're going to hopefully attempt
We're gonna try and rejoin you after everything.
After the discussions with Parky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
have life I have to catch up with. But yes, after that, sure, why not?
Okay. So obviously we've had folks discussing things, and we will continue to discuss as we go. So Jarrett, we'll catch up with you in just a little bit.
Hopefully.
All right. Jared Smith is right there. And guess what? There he is. Hit the button and Michael Parkhurst pops up because, once again, Cap, I'm trying to sit here and navigate things and hit the button for the open. What happens? I missed the button for the open. I just transferred Jared out. He knocked himself out. So I hit the next button, which meant that you popped up immediately instead of giving you the grand open that we always give you and Greg when you show up for the Friday free kick.
Hey, it's all good, John. Yeah. You weren't expecting me, so I threw you off again. So
Absolutely. I was not. But it's always great to have you and Greg here for the Friday free kick. I want to kind of talk about a bunch of different things within the context of mentoring and experiences and things like that. And, obviously folks are talking about what information was released yesterday by The Athletic, but I don't necessarily want to get into that particular kind of a discussion about the individual because, once again, it's one side of an issue. Atlanta United has not come out publicly to say anything, but I want to look at it this way. I want to address it this way with you as a mentor and a former player in Major League Soccer. When you have a difficult situation with a player who means as much as Joseph does, when you're the surrounding part of the roster, and this applies to mentors and mentees as well, as you are looking at a roster of individuals that you're trying to help, and that one person that might be better than the others may not be around that much longer. When you look at your mentees and they understand that there's one guy who's better and they're okay and they're trying to learn, what does all of the noise that's associated with anything, how does noise affect mentees, and how do you address the idea of noise and making sure that it doesn't affect them working on the task at hand, I guess is the way that I'll phrase the question.
And you mean by noise, meaning like things going on out off the field? And
off the field, all of the chatter that you might hear about your play or your team's play, those kinds of things. Off the field chatter, how do you address with your mentees the notion of focusing on the task at hand and just being the best that you can, even though there's all of this noise around you, whatever that noise is?
Yeah, it's not easy. I'm not going to say, hey, do this and it's easy, right? I mean, I read this morning about Klay Thompson. I don't know if you saw it, John, but he was talking about how he heard Charles Barkley was not criticizing, but saying that he's not the same player he was pre-injury.
Right.
And, Klay said something to the effect of like, I'm not yet, but give me a break. I'm going to get there. And you could just tell, like, he obviously, it affected him, what Charles said. Right. And so even Klay Thompson, who's one of the best basketball players in the world, he's being affected by, a commentator's viewpoint of things. Right. And so it's not always easy to just shut everything out. So that's first thing of knowing, like, okay, all athletes are human beings. They hear things, they read things, and it does affect them sometimes. But I think that no one on the outside completely understands what you as an athlete are going through every day in and day out, in your preparation and how hard you're working and the commitment to the craft that you have. And if you can look at yourself in the mirror and say you're doing everything that you can to be successful on the field and give yourself the best opportunity in your team, then you just have to, live with that and know that the performances will come if they're not there. And even if the performance isn't there from the rest of your team and there's issues and things like that, then it gets back to the controllables and uncontrollables and what you can control and what you can't, and focusing on your own performances and how you can help the team.
Okay. One of our watchers and listeners in the Twitch pitch, Kefsi, has a question for you this morning. You've described just how hard it is to move when you don't want to. Can you talk about how narrow the margins are As an example, do front offices offer a range of options? Is it take it or leave it? Or we made the decision, you have no say? In your experience, I imagine with you and those around you, it's been pretty much choice D, all the above, that you've seen versions of all of that. But when it comes to what Kefsy's talking about here, what have your experiences been?
Yeah, it depends on the player and it depends on the organization. I think that some players are, I'll just say, more respected by their organizations, and some organizations do things how I would view as the right way, or the way that you'd want them to be done to you, right? If you were on the other end of it, right? I think that Julian Gressel is a good example of, like, the trade had already occurred and they brought him in right before training. It was like, hey, we just traded you to the other side of not even the country, because it's out of the country, but hey, you're going to the other side, West Coast there, and going to go play for Vancouver. And it was, completely blindsided and didn't know it was occurring. No talk from the agent, no talk to the player, that for me is a terrible look, especially to a guy who's not in their first few years, who's one of the better players in the league. When I was moving on from Columbus, and I didn't see eye to eye with Greg about my value, and I was upset and disappointed by that for sure. And it hurt our relationship. But, he was very good about, like, being upfront with me and with my agent and saying, hey, we'll try and move you somewhere where you'd want to go. Obviously to a certain extent, he didn't want to make a powerhouse in the East too good. So I had some say there, and it goes to the other side too, right? Usually the team that's trading for players, sometimes they want to know if the player wants to come, because sometimes you don't want to get a player who doesn't want to go where you are at, right? Some teams obviously don't care. They're saying, hey, they'll deal with it and they'll get over it. But there's unfortunately there's no set way, right? The MLS controls all the options. There are no player options in MLS. Maybe Beckham had one, and those types of players, but 99.9% of players do not have a player option. So all options are the league and the team options, and very few players have those no trade clauses like Joseph has. So Joseph will have a say because of that.
When you're talking to your mentees, how many times does your conversation roll into the idea of the world isn't fair?
A lot. It's something I tell my kids all the time, because I think it's important to understand that, right? You can do things the right way and prepare the right way and do things this and even studying for a test, right? You study all night, you put the time in and you don't do well. And then the other kid who, like, goofs off all day, right? Doesn't pay attention and stuff. And somehow he does well on the test. And you think, hey, that's just the way it falls sometimes, right? Life isn't fair, right? You can dominate a game on the soccer field and lose 1-0 on a corner kick or an own goal or whatever, right? It's just, life isn't fair. And it's just the understanding of, like, accepting that and moving on and not, dwelling on it, because you will come across things that for some reason it goes down that way. And it's all about, like, viewing it of, like, okay, well, it was meant to be for some reason, right? Whatever reason that is, I don't know, maybe quite yet, but I'm going to deal with it and I'm going to move on. And I'm not going to make this, like, this isn't the way that it will always be, right? This was an outlier, an outcast, but these things do happen.
What about the notion of being as stand up an individual as possible, being a professional? Because it's not just how you are as an athlete, because even if you don't turn into that top 100th of 1% and be a professional athlete, you're still going to be out there in the real world, and how you conduct yourself as an individual growing up is hopefully the individual that you will continue to be as you get into an adult. You have to have those conversations too, I would imagine. It's how you present yourself and how you start your ideas is hopefully how you carry yourself on future. True?
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. A lot of the mentoring we do is, it doesn't matter if they're going to be a professional soccer player, if they're going to go work in business or be a contractor or whatever, do anything in life. there's a certain way to carry yourself and to look about things and to set yourself up for the most success possible. When I think about why a lot of companies like to hire ex-athletes, I think that one of the reasons is athletes deal with a ton of failure, right? More than the average person deals with failure, right? If you look at soccer players, right? Say on a good season, you lose 30 to 40% of your games, right? So 30 to 40% of the time you're failing, right? If John, if you failed 30 to 40% of the times in your jobs, right, you wouldn't have the job very much, right? You wouldn't have it very long.
Right.
And so athletes they need to have a good ability to get over losses and to move on and to learn from them, and to have that courage to do that, that some non-athletes have never don't as often go through.
How long did it take you to, I don't want to use the word accept losing, because no one likes to accept the notion of losing, but I guess to understand that you won't win 100% of the time, whatever you're doing, whether it's athletically or in the business world or whatever. How long did it take you to understand that it's not going to be 100% of the time that you're going to be successful?
Yeah, I think I came into a good locker room in New England with when I got drafted, and a lot of veterans. And I think at the time, I was at Wake Forest in college, and I mean, I played there 3 years, and we were very, very successful. So we didn't lose much. When I came pro, sometimes after losses, I'd be pretty disappointed and pretty hard. And, you see other guys kind of, disappointed, yeah, but bouncing back very quickly and, still going home to their kids and going out afterwards to have dinner and things. And so they kind of taught me of like the benefit of, okay, what's in the past is in the past. Yes, we can learn from it, but, it's not going to help us for next game if we're dwelling on this loss in the past. And it's just the life of athletics, right? And taking the positives away from it and taking the lessons away from it will help you in the future. But losing is part of the journey for sure.
So when you lose or you don't get your way, I guess what you want to have happen, I guess it can be losing, or it can be just not yet. I think there's probably two ways to describe it. When you look at that idea, when it comes to discussing that with other folks, I mean, we're all wired differently, I think, when it comes to our challenges. How do you get all of these different mindsets of levels of acceptance together to work as a unit? And I know that that's like a team concept kind of a thing, but when you have folks who are kind of more chill and more mellow, and they understand, okay, yeah, we're not going to happen, it's not going to happen 100% of the time. And then you have those guys like you that are just like, it's got to happen 100% of the time, at least when you're starting out. How difficult is it to manage all of those ideas in one space before everyone understands a common goal?
Yeah, it's challenging, and that's the beauty of a team, right? We had it in Atlanta when I was there for sure. Guys like myself and Jeff were a little bit more even keeled and understanding of the process, but you've got the younger guys, especially the Latino guys. Take Leandro, for example. He was definitely somebody where it was like, the highs and lows, and like after every game of like being super upset and disappointed and frustrated. And that's part of learning and growing. And that's, you hope that, through some conversations we can help him, understand some things, and he'll just grasp some stuff off being around us. But also, I think that it keeps us, Jeff and I, when I say us, young and hungry, and, brings us back to that time. And, so I think there's good things to both sides. But, I definitely tend to lean towards understanding the long game, especially in a long season, unless things are going, down, 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 down. Then you have to hit a point where this is no longer acceptable.
I was gonna say, because I would imagine that while you and Big Red were probably two of the more even keeled guys out there, there was always time where you could sit there and have a moment where you could be a little more than even keel. But I think that the experience factor is where you sit there and you manage. It's like, okay, I need to ramp it up just a little bit. I need to be a little bit more fiery, or even conversely, I need to be even a little less dialed in than I am right now. It's just, I think experience also is part of managing those moments too, where you kind of read the room and you're like, okay, I need to dial it up here a little bit just so everybody understands that this is that much more of a moment instead of just being as even keeled as you and Jeff are.
Definitely. And, I'm only saying, being even keeled and understanding of losing when yourself and everyone on the team has given everything that they've got and prepared the right way and brought the right mentality and the right work rate and all that stuff. Right. And then you still lose.
Yeah.
Right. But sometimes all that doesn't line up. Right. And your team is not playing up to expectations for whatever reason or another. And those are the times when you go, from the even keel above that to say, hey, this isn't good enough. Why are we like this? Let's get out of it, get better. This needs to improve, versus like, oh, it's no problem.
When you have those moments where you've got to grab somebody by the scruff of the neck and kind of sit there and shake them, it's like, what's that like for someone like you as that individual to sit there and have to dial it up that much more and have everybody understand, or that one individual understand, dude, you've got to really jack it up here, and I'm going to be the example here as well. What's it like to have to take control by the scruff of the neck and drag folks into a situation that they may not quite understand off the top? This is a big deal.
Yeah, I think that was one of the big benefits for me as far as my demeanor, because I rarely did that. So when I did do it, like, everyone knew, oh shoot, if Parky's losing his crap here, then something must really be going on, because this is abnormal and rare. So let me pay attention and understand the gravity of it, versus if somebody is doing it all the time, win or lose, small margin to big margins, then it loses its effect. So I think that I benefited from that in that regard. But as far as getting there, it took a little bit, right? And that's just my demeanor of not wanting to get on guys unless it was, really necessary. But when it wasn't difficult, because I knew, like, the emotions just get through and you get hot, and that's where the competitiveness comes in.
I just have this vision of you when you've dialed it up and you're steamed between the ears, and I just have this vision of you trying to sit there and cuss and sit there and make your point and stomp around. I mean, did you ever have one of those almost out of body experiences where you're trying to sit there and make a point so atypically of how you would normally make a point that everybody was like, man, Parkhurst is out there today? Did you ever have one of those out of body experiences where you had to make a point?
Yeah, I mean, I remember one specifically. I was in Denmark at the time, and we had just played Champions League game against Shakhtar Donetsk, and it's a good history lesson and something crazy to look up on YouTube. Shakhtar Donetsk scored a crazy goal that we kicked the ball out of bounds on purpose for one of their guys. They were supposed to kick the ball back to us. Their guy kicked the ball back to our goalie, and their striker ran onto it and scored while all of us were stopped. Right. So it was like there was a huge delay in the game, like fighting. It was just insane. So anyways, and this is a group league Champions League game, like big time. So anyways, that guy ended up, Adriano, very good player, ended up scoring a hat trick in the game. And that was the first of the goals that he scored. And so we allowed him to score 2 more goals. And I lost it. I was playing right back at the time, and I lost it in the locker room afterwards, like in front of the whole team, like just saying how embarrassing and disgraceful it was. And, that this guy should have never been able to finish the game. Somebody needed to lay into him and make a point. And, that was just very rare for me, but I just could not control it. It was just, I had so much anger and so much fire inside. I remember that to this day for sure.
Do your mentees of this generation, how are they wired emotionally? Are they more hot tempered? Is it the three bears? Is it some are hot tempered, some are just right, and some are cold tempered? How do you view today's mentee? How are they wired more than not?
Yeah, all over the shop. There's definitely some that are too wired, and you need to let them understand about the losses and controlling things. But there are a fair share where I think that we've got sort of sometimes a tendency, especially for young youth players, to say, hey, like calm down out there. But sometimes that's their strength, is bringing that emotion and that fire to the game, and that tenacity. And so I say, hey, play the game with emotions. Don't go over the edge. But if that's one of your strengths, then bring it. Right? Don't put that on the side if that's one of your strengths. So like everything, right? There's that fine balance that we always talk about. But there's definitely players that but you're also saying, hey, you need to care a little bit more about your own play and the team's play, and can you affect it, and can you talk to guys and the right way. So definitely all over the shop.
How much are you as a mentor and Greg learning about mentoring through your mentees? I mean, I imagine that when you started Beyond Goals, there was you had a skill set, you had a mindset, you and Greg had an approach and an idea. How much have you learned about yourself as a mentor during this process with Beyond Goals?
Yeah, a lot, actually. I've learned, a lot about things that I just took for granted throughout my career, just because I didn't know any better. And it was just like, well, this is kind of how I am and why I do things and how I approach things. But now when I'm like trying to teach some of the things, I think back into like, oh, why did I do that? Or how did I do that? And why did it benefit me? And, oh, this is maybe why I instinctively did this or that. And no, not every player feels this way or does this thing or understands this concept or those types of things. So it really has me analyzing my own self and why I did some of the things I did and what led to success and what didn't, and those types of things where, I probably wouldn't have thought about all those things and what made me successful unless I was doing what I'm doing.
Abby with a question. She wonders what the mentee expectations are, even between generations, Gen Z compared with millennials. Are mentee expectations different, or are the expectations, regardless of which generation we're talking about, is it universal or are they different?
I think expectations are higher right now I don't know if it's for everyone, but definitely for like the Atlanta United players and like the higher end athletes right now that we work with, like the even the club soccer players, right? They all want to become professional or play in college, and they've got these goals, and some of these kids want to turn pro by the time they're 16, 17, because some other players have. And so it's kind of managing those expectations a little bit as well. Also managing parents' expectations of their kids, and the pressure that puts on some kids. So definitely part of it is dealing with that and setting goals along the way, right? When I was going through, it was, my goal was, to make the high school team, and then it was to become a starter and to see if I get to college. Okay, I can get to college. How good of a college can I get to? Okay, can I become a starter at college? And then it was just like, okay, eventually it was like, okay, I think I can turn pro. Not like, of course you have the dream of going pro, but the dream is different than the expectation. So yeah, for sure. We encourage kids and people to dream big. One thing that I heard not too long ago that I liked was, if nobody calls your dream crazy, you're not dreaming high enough or big enough.
Yeah.
And I really liked that. But, expectations is a different thing.
What was the last craziest dream you had?
The last craziest dream I had, I don't know. That's a good question. That's a good question, John. I don't know.
Was it Rhode Island?
That's yeah, it's a tough thing right now because a lot of the dreams are like, I hope to become reality. Like, yes, Rhode Island's a big one. I told my wife I want to be fluent in Spanish by the time I'm 40.
Okay.
So, maybe both of those are dreams, but some of it I have control over. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I will once again let you know. It's story time with John, real quick, to talk about crazy dreams. You know how, like, when your grandparents will sit there and they'll tell you that you're crazy sometimes, and they'll do this, they'll do the hand bit, and he's like, "Ah, you're crazy." Well, when I was in college, my grandfather, who was Battle of Britain, invasion of North Africa, OSS, the wind tunnels in Tennessee in the 1950s, youngest ever at the time to achieve the rank of bird colonel. And because he never held his tongue, he remained the youngest ever at the time to remain bird colonel. When I told him, he's like, "Okay, so you're going to school. Well, what are you going to major in?" I said, "Political science." He goes, "Oh, you're going to be a lawyer." I'm like, "No, I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm going to work in television. I'm going to do TV sports." Instead of doing this, where he says, "Oh, you're crazy as hell," he came all the way from back here. It was like, "Oh, you're crazy as hell." And I mean, literally, he almost like threw his shoulder out of his socket. So that's the kind of crazy dream that you're looking at with this. And so I said, okay, that's a crazy enough dream to sit there and have your grandfather throw his arm out of the socket to tell you how nuts you were. Yeah, I mean, so that's the kind of stuff that we're looking at here. And to be able to have these things that are attainable and achievable. If what is it? If you don't dream it, you can't achieve it. I think that's
yep.
the case.
Yeah.
And so you've gone from incredibly successful professional athlete to now someone who is investing in futures, whether it's menteeing or if it's in expanding the game in a riverfront development with a shiny stadium and professional franchisee kind of stuff. I think that's dreaming pretty big and seeing things that you want to tackle, whether it's crazy or not. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, true. No, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I'll take those dreams. If they both come realities here in the next year and a half or so, I'm doing all right. I'll be happy with that.
Okay.
I will say, John, just to everybody that's here, I am reading the messages on the side. I've realized now where they are, and the last couple times I've been on, I've been seeing them. So yeah, I'm disappointed that Larry's not with Atlanta as well, but I am happy to have him up here in Ohio with me in Darlington.
Okay, yeah. So does this mean that that you're going to call up Big Red one morning and have him just kind of appear from the side, and just have him kind of eavesdrop in on the segment?
I'd love to have that.
Just have him knock on the door and crash the segment. I think that'd be pretty funny.
Yeah, Jeff actually was going to be a part of Beyond Goals. It was the three of us that were putting this all together, but then he had just too many commitments elsewhere, and wasn't quite sure at the time where he wanted to go and what he was going to do. So, but it was going to be the three of us, and before it was Greg and I.
Can't take him anywhere. Just man. Can you tackle an Atlanta United question before we go?
Of course.
All right. So Jason Nix came in this morning, and he wanted to know what your impression was of how Atlanta United has done business, and would you want to come here now if you had the choice?
If I was a player?
Yeah.
Yes. I'd be wary.
Mm-hmm.
More wary than I would have been a little while ago.
Yeah.
But yes, because it's still one of the biggest clubs in MLS. You still play in front of a massive crowd. It's still a well-funded team that takes good care of them, that has a great training facility, and will set you up for success. And if you do really well and you've got offers from, Europe or wherever, they obviously will sell if the offer is right. So I think all of those things still work in Atlanta United's favor. But there are other teams that are catching quickly. Atlanta United set the tone for MLS 3.0, 4.0, whatever you want to call it. But other teams have joined in, which is great. And that's what you wanted from the league. But it's still a top 5 destination in MLS.
So what's going on with Beyond Goals these days?
I'm down next week to speak to a foundation board so that we can hopefully get some 501c3, whatever it is, funding for the nonprofit side. So hopefully that will go well, and it'll open up more doors for us to do more in the community.
Sweet. At MF Parkhurst on the Twitters. Now he's got a 3-week streak going, hanging out with me and all of my random questions and thoughts. And he's sitting there going, God, what's Nelson going to ask me next? I have no idea. And but thanks for hanging on to the comment every single week, Cap. It's great to have you on, and great work that you and Greg and everybody's doing there at Beyond Goals. And we will catch up with you next week, or we'll catch up with you the next time we see you. Whether Garza sits there and says, "Hey, can you cover for me again?"
This guy's always busy on Friday mornings. I don't know what's got going on.
Dude, it's like, so yeah, we'll catch up with you and Garza. Thanks again, Mike.
Yeah, of course. Good to talk to you. Have a good weekend.
All right, be good. Michael Parkhurst, as always, fantastic for him to catch up with us here at Beyond Goals. So let me do this, since I didn't get to do it when he first was here. There. That's the intro that he's supposed to get. That's the intro that he and Greg Garza are supposed to get every single week with our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring. And I give Cap all the credit in the world. And I give Greg all the credit in the world because of all the questions that I have in my head on a weekly basis that have to do with mentoring. And thanks to all of you guys for doing the same thing and making sure that you guys have questions and thoughts. You throw them in the Twitch pitch and we rock and roll from there. And so, thanks to all of you guys for being a part of this. All right. So now, since it is basically the 1 hour mark here with the show, let me see if I can remember where the levels of the music were supposed to be. I think it was 20. I'm not going to loop it. And so time for the mid-show promo. From our friends at Lemonize Service, for odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. And it is Lemonize, deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. Lemonize Services created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pets, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use the Lemonize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process, makes it easy to work with said realtors and property managers. Kind of the environment, we like that these days. Very green way of going about things without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever. Different than Febreze or our favorite masking agents that we have either under the sink or above us in the cupboard, because when we reach either under the sink or above us in the cupboard, bring out the masking agent, spray it in the air. That's why they call it a masking agent, because you're just masking the odors. You're not attacking the problem like the Lemonize service does. Throwing the odors all the way down to the molecule. They're proven scientific formula. Pricing very, very easy, either by the cubic foot or parts per million, to come up with a price that's affordable for you. Offering results in 24 hours or less. Any questions frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go, it's the website. That's where I pick up my pen. Website, lemonize.com, but do us a favor, after the .com, go /Atlanta so they know what part of the world that you are addressing them from, so they can help you attack your issues. So your full homework assignment, ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta, lemonize.com /Atlanta. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, Lemonize Service, proud sponsors of everything SDH on a Friday. Slowly fading the music and hitting pause so it doesn't hit return the second I take it off. All right. So one of the comments that I noticed before next, help me fix some things. Okay. Abby, I will be in South Georgia, I think, at some points next week. So you might be seeing the show being done out of a hotel room. some stuff for high school football, some story that we're chasing for the championships, and probably down there Tuesday, Wednesday. So Monday, Thursday, it would have to be early. And so if you crash, then you might see Abby behind me here in Office HD. But there was one comment that was here in the Twitch pitch that I wanted to address, and it's from the Airborne DJ. What's always fascinated me is the difference between the narrative and discussion here in this space as opposed to out on other platforms night and day. And it's really cool here. It's cool being a part of it with you level-headed, mostly LOL reasonable folks. And Tom, we've known each other for a long time. And what we have always wanted to do here, me and Jason and Jarrett and Nick, was in addition to being soccer's morning show, we wanted to do things journalistically. We wanted to do things level-headedly. We wanted to do things presenting all of the evidence that we have so folks can still make up their own minds and have their own discussions and have discussions with each other on the Twitch pitch. When we have the space to do it like we always do. I mean, we don't just sit here and do 15 minutes and then we're out the door. If there's a topic on the table that needs to be discussed for more than just, hey, this is going on to the next thing, that's what we're here to do in this format. It is a morning show, but it is here to discuss things in depth, to have earnest discussion throughout, to have all of you have discussions amongst yourselves, and for us to give our evidence, to give the facts of what's on, to let all of the facts ruminate here in this space so we can all have informed elements going forward. The most recent example of all of this was the Yates report. For those of you that were listening the morning that the Yates report, after the Yates report came out, and Jarrett and I spent an hour and 40 minutes breaking down the Yates report because it needed to be broken down. And it's not something that you can just sit there and do in a 20-minute chunk, go to commercial, and move on to the next. There are topics when they come across the table that deserve the deep dive. They deserve the analysis. They deserve the evidence coming from each and every angle. They deserve points of view. They deserve the discussion. And that's what we try to do here. That's what we've always tried to do here. We've always tried to be journalistic about it. We've always tried to be level-headed about it and understand that fans of any team, whether it's Rich with Philadelphia, whether it's Shooter with New England, whether it's 90% of you tied to Atlanta United, whether it's Sean and his Spurs or his Florida Panthers or whomever, there's always the discussions, there's always talking points, but we want to sort through all of the noise to give you all of the facts of every case going forward. And so that's why when we have these ideas, when we have these deep dive topics, we're not going to shy away from them. We want to make sure that the evidence is out there so you all can be informed. It's to inform, it's to entertain, and it's to make sure that nothing is left unturned when it comes to investigating a situation. So that is what we've always tried to do here. We've always tried to be level-headed and have everyone understand all of the elements tied to a particular topic, not just here's your greatest hits, let's move on. But because we have the space to do it, we're always going to do it this way. And I mean, for some folks, it may not be necessarily what they want to hear on a morning, a particular morning, but the main topic, if it deserves a deep dive, we'll go into a deep dive and we'll talk about it. In as much as we have fun with each other and talking about anything and everything, there are topics where we will have deep dives and we will try to attack it as journalistically and as well-rounded as possible. And so when all of you in the Twitch pitch, and thanks to all of you who here on a daily basis come in and share your opinions with each other. You do the same on the Discord, even in the food channel where I'm banned. But when you have your conversations in the Discord, and Jared hops in there from time to time, and I have to remember how to do that. But for all of you that have conversations here in the Twitch pitch, in the Discord, with each other, socially, with the community that we've created here in our 6th season of doing this morning show, we're going to go on deep dives when it's necessary. And the one thing that you mentioned, Tom, is level-headedness. That's the one thing that I would, that just let's all be level-headed. Doesn't matter what the topic is. Could be Chelsea with Michael Head, could be Auburn with me and Michael Head, where I'm having to sit here and talk the boss down, and everyone agrees that Auburn needs a new head football coach because he seems to be just laying waste to the whole thing before he's being dared to be fired. Any topic, the level-headedness here, the journalistic intent, that's what we've always tried to aim for here at SDH, and that's just where we are every day. But no, thank you, Tom, for making that point this morning. I know that the Twitch pitch has been long, and Nick's, yes, Nick's, you too. The Twitch pitch has been long about Joseph, and I know that you guys have expressed concerns as well about just the one side that has been put out there in the ether, with, once again, Atlanta United not going to have any kind of a discussion in public. And that's just how it's going to be. And so the fact that there are concerns, once again, that is part of this whole equation in taking in information. And that's what I would also ask. When it comes to any topic, I don't care what it is, don't just stick to one source. Find your sources and check and if you're on social media, check the number of followers with a source. Don't just stick to one piece of information. Don't just stick to one channel of information. Go to as many different places as you can. Be curious and see what doors open up, in different directions when it comes to researching topics and trying to understand things. Yes, we go deep dive, but we can also only do so much. So don't be afraid to just look for other sources and try to find information to get as much information on a particular topic as you can. But just go out there and be informed, because nothing beats being informed when you try to have information on any topic. And so just y'all are incredibly cool about it. And thanks for putting up with us on a daily basis. Yes. Except salt. Yeah. Having differing opinions doesn't mean you aren't level-headed. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with having different opinions. Absolutely not. And once again, that's part of the beauty of the Twitch pitch, is that you guys have conversations about anything and everything. I mean, Uncle, with what you see on a daily basis out west. I'm trying to think of. So Bam is in Australia and he's an LAFC guy. Uncle, you're in Portland. Shooter's in New England. Rich is in Philly. A lot of you are here in this footprint. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that I might have forgotten geographically. But you guys are all over the place, and that's fantastic that you guys can have these discussions about the teams that you're tied to all across the board. So very, very cool stuff. Let's see. Let's see what else is going on here. Once again, I'm checking through a lot of things. Let's see. And like I said, I'm scanning backwards. Yes. Yeah. Saga for Good OG. Bam. We mentioned from LAFC in Australia. It's great to have an Australian viewer listener. And I think for Bam, he's now back to 15 hours ahead. So I think it would be like 1:00 in the morning for him right now. Reasonable, but also more knowledgeable and less reactive. And so, Uncle, Joseph leaving was inevitable, but how it's going to end up taking place is way less than ideal. Yep. Reasonable is the key word. Other social platforms can go cray-cray. I'm on them, but I don't always chime in. Neither do I. I am like the retweeting king. And most of the stuff that I retweet has to do with high school football, puppies, veterans, and sports. That's pretty. I am the king retweeter. I'm literally the retweeter. Sean, I don't know how your Spurs got absolutely screwed, although I would love it if Becky Hammon became the new head coach when Pop decides to retire, whenever that is. Much better music and volume with speech. Okay, so 20 might be the level, and we'll just have to figure out if that works in playback. We'll have to figure that out. And thanks to everybody who is asking questions and hanging out and following what's going on with Beyond Goals. And thank you for the encouragement, because now that Cap has seen the Discord, wow, the Twitch pitch, and you guys having conversations, the enthusiasm and the encouragement for him learning Spanish, very, very cool stuff. That was very and burned the interesting part about Midtjylland lost yesterday. Adriano's 35 and scored 4 goals in the Turkish league this season. Maybe he can fall in for striker for us for a year. One discussion that we were having in the green room: bring in Pulga for a year and a half. Could you imagine Pulga Rodriguez here? That'd be epic. And so that would be really cool. Burned. Weird thing was Laronowitz was at a lot of Twos games this season in the stands taking notes. He was doing some scouting or development work. Sure, it would end up working for Atlanta United in some capacity. Looking forward to seeing what Larry is up to, and if he decides to crash the show one morning from Ohio, that would be pretty funny. Yeah, and Abby, when it comes to the storyline this morning, right here, not going to continue to be the optimist. Nothing is confirmed going or staying, but once again, that's the thing with all of this. Once again, you're just getting the one side from the couple of paragraphs or couple of sentences that were attached to a story in The Athletic, and that's what it was. It was a story there. It was not anything else. A story there. That's it. Rack. And like I said, I'm working backward this morning, so just bear with me here. Find the decision very short-sighted if it is Joseph not being reasonable. Struggle to believe long haul he makes more going somewhere for a year or two versus taking a cut and working all the endorsements, being a king in the best city in the South for the rest of the time. Really thought Joseph always saw the big picture, and this whole situation seems short-sighted on everyone's part. Yeah, that David with Parkey, that don't want to make another team in the Easton Powerhouse might be the most subtle brag ever. Yeah, and Kefsey, absolutely. What we can say, Parkey's a great example of putting your head down, making the most of what you can control, and we thank him always. Let's see, working backward. Let's see. So that one was taken care of, and like I said, if there's anything else. Soccer for Good OG. Bottom line, past is the past, never to be recreated. Lightning in a bottle. Change is the only constant. Personally, I'm looking forward to what the future holds. And then the conversation between Ricky and Wiley. Don't think they'll move him to a team that impedes our own progress. Direct rival. And I think that's part of it also. I think that's part of it too. Conversation between Emilio and Tom. Press doesn't have to reveal sources, but it makes people want to question the motives. Is this accurate? Yes, it is. End of sentence. No trade clause with Joseph. Yes, that is true. Gressel got his option picked up by Vancouver, according to Ricky Ricardo. Okay, I think we're pretty much caught up. And Rack, once again, about Joseph. Agree you don't deal in league if you can, but I get the impression Joseph can force a buyout, then get his pick per The Athletic. If so, Joseph wanting to be the first guy to score on all the current MLS clubs would be tempting for a guy with his personality. Yes, absolutely true. Rack, tough on the kids. My son would get over it, but he was 6 the first time he met Joseph, been watching the guy basically his whole life since he could remember things. All of us who watch sports know the first big heartbreak from losing that guy. To think it'll stay forever. Absolutely. That is absolutely true. And I think, and Burned, once again, that we mentioned early on, that it might be a return to Italy. Fun part is what we're really getting close to the past where everybody at games have to finally recognize that's right. Your neighbors in the seats are the club. Everyone else is temporary here to help. Yeah. Tom, what if the club has a DP level player already lined up and they needed the open slot? Again, it could have been that Martinez didn't want to stay on a reduced salary. That is possibly part of it as well. Obviously, all the discussions. Emilio, not like the Mets trading Tom Seaver because he wanted about $250,000 in the front office, not budging over $175,000 a year. In 1975, I believe that was, because I remember having both my Tom Seaver Reds and my Tom Seaver Mets baseball cards as a part of it as well. Rack, point about Joseph's behavior isn't a bad one. Contract has a no trade clause, basically acted to force a trade. Article does, quote, kind of reek of agent. Yeah, comment reserved. Let's see. Let's see here. Am I missing anybody else from early on? I think we're caught up. And let me get caught back up with everybody down here at the bottom. The new playoff format yesterday. It's a possibility, Nix. We did when it seems like, you understand the idea of with a new television partner. And that was the other thing that we probably would have talked about today was the new TV deal, the big expose that came out from The Athletic about how Apple is chasing after what they're looking for with exclusive windows and looking at talent and hiring folks and possibly coming up with as many as 12 separate teams. Folks had come in for auditions, exclusive windows, and it looks like for either team, for teams in the East and the Western Conference, the way that the grid was laid out is that there's an exclusive window before and after games. But the problem is that if you are an East Coast team, your exclusive window post-match doesn't open up until after all of the games are completed. So you would have to do post-game show after dark, literally at like 1 o'clock in the morning on whatever platform you had designated as your own separate platform. You would have your pregame show window for an Eastern team from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern time. Then the games would kick in. The Apple pregame show kicks in at 7. They'd have the whip around show all evening. Kickoffs at 7:30. They probably, I think, would have 6 games in the Eastern window. Decent percentage of them on the free side of your Apple subscription. And then there's an additional Apple subscription, the deeper dive, where you get access to everything. And then that's where that would kick in. But to do a post-game show, it would be like at 1 o'clock in the morning East Coast time. So the benefits of doing these kinds of programming for Eastern Conference teams, it would be pre-Apple from 6 to 7. And then for the Western Conference teams, the benefit for them would be a post-game show when their games are completed, say from 10 to 11 local time, 1 to 2 Eastern. If a Western Conference team really wanted to do a pre-Apple show, it would have to be from the 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock local window in the afternoon, and you still have 3 hours before your games start. So it looks like the Eastern Conference teams would be benefiting from a pre-Apple show, and the Western Conference teams would be benefiting from a post-Apple show. The way that it would go is Apple pregame, all the games, some little bit of crossover, kickoffs, Mountain Time Zone, and so on, then the Pacific Time Zone, and then everything kicks in from there. But it looks like the resources are being thrown at the product because, remember, we're only 4 months away from it. So trying to find as many trucks. Looks like announcers will be on site as opposed to calling things remotely. The initial thing that Apple is trying to do is come up with, apparently there's a local radio option, which will be fantastic, where you can listen to local radio instead of the Apple TV play-by-play. So that'll be very cool as well. Playoff format, we kind of went back and forth about it yesterday, Nix. if they're looking to, and the reason I was talking TV was because they want to expand the Apple TV postseason property number from 13 to closer to 30. And to do that, obviously, you would need more playoff games. They're thinking about this World Cup thing where it's group stages and all that. And we were kind of talking about it yesterday, where you had folks suggesting things, and I suggested just go 1 through 8, go 2 legs all the way through. And that puts you, I think, in the high 20s. So for me, that's what I would do. But they're still trying to figure it out. This was one idea, to turn it into some World Cup format with group stages and stuff. So still trying to figure out what they want to do about a new playoff format to appease their new TV partner. And I hope that your car is out of the shop and it did not bankrupt you. Getting into what folks we're still talking about with discussing everybody else's favorite fans, the OG. Still to test LA any sport, any team. It's genetic. Understood. Sadly waiting on a part. Oh, okay. That sucks. Uncle hoping that they don't use the buyout on Joseph. Plenty of overinflated contracts in the midfield need to be shed. But we also don't know who may be interested in those individuals if there is interest. So once again, keeping an eye on those things. But when you have stories come out that push a particular point of view, it might make it a little more difficult. Let's see. OG, interesting note. Just found her receipt from the very first Atlanta jersey that she bought, January, February, March 13th of 2017. Let's see. Well, no. I think he was going from east to west. I think he was mentioning what happened from D.C. to Vancouver. And it forgot to mention the middleman in that. Yeah, DC was the team that apparently did not speak to Julian before he was traded to Vancouver. Yeah, burned. Showing 40% of all MLS games next for free, not behind the paywall. That's good. Yes, it is. And remember, they're also doing MLS Next Pro. They're doing all of those matches as well. So that's a part of it. So, David, local TV media who could do a post-game news show with no local game coverage on the network. That's the problem. Post-game or news. If you did a news show and you aired it independently, I think that's something that could be done. If I understand, like you wanted to have a show that did features and highlights and those kinds of things and sit downs, you could do that, but you could air it independently of game night. You wanted to run it, say, like they do with the coaches shows for college football. They run them on Sunday morning. After Saturday game, you run them Sunday morning, those kinds of things. If you did those independent half-hour produced things, you could run them outside this window and not have to worry about being locked into not showing anything until 1 o'clock in the morning. So pregame is probably where Eastern Conference teams will try to figure out if they want to do something pre-Apple, and then possibly bringing back half-hour weeklies and posting it either to their own platforms where they're in control of the information, or finding an over-the-air partner. So that's the other part, if I understand things correctly. Playoff options, still don't see how they make the regular season more important in any of these. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like I said, add an 8th team, make it 2 legs all the way through. That'd be great. That's the way it is for me. Abby, just walked into your local Starbucks, extended a counter and workspace, double what it used to be, got rid of many tables. Guess they don't. Yeah, I could very, very well be. About how things lay out. So you treated yourself to a venti hot chocolate after getting your 3rd COVID booster. Mazel tov. Well done. I'm currently at 2 and 2 myself. So I think my next go round would be for my physical or whenever the 6-month period is. So that's when that would be. We got games this weekend, by the way, and a couple of them kind of matter in Major League Soccer. And you're looking at 3 o'clock and 8 o'clock. 3 o'clock on Sunday, LAFC and Austin. We'll get into the juice box since this one's on Big ABC. And it is the super pregame show. So 3:18 kick at Bank of California Stadium. Fun facts. LAFC won all 3 matches against Austin in 2021, including the inaugural match before Austin turned around and won both meetings this year. 12 of the 15 goals scored in 5 meetings between the two have been scored in the second half, including 8 in the final 30 minutes. Diego Fagundes has been big for Austin against LAFC as he's either scored 3 or assisted 2. On 5 of the 7 goals Verde have scored against them, Fagundes has scored 8 MLS goals since September 2021, 3 of those against LAFC, 37.5%. LAFC's 3-2 win over the Galaxy in the conference semi, 10th in their last 11 home matches, only losing on decision day to Nashville after having clinched Supporters Shield. The 5-goal thriller, another high-scoring playoff game at the Bank, which has seen a total of 22 goals scored in 4 postseason matches. LAFC's only 2 postseason wins have come over the Galaxy at home. 2019-2022 conference semis. LA has lost 2 of their 4 home playoff matches while losing just 9 times in 79 regular season home games, winning 50, drawing 20. So 50, 9, and 20 for LAFC. With their win over Dallas, Austin FC became the 3rd expansion team in MLS history to advance in its first 2 rounds of postseason play in club history, joining Chicago, who won MLS Cup in 98, Nashville, who won the play-in the first round in 2020. As the shootout win over RSL counted officially as a draw, Austin hasn't won consecutive matches since a 4-match win streak in June and July. They'll have to win on the road for the first time since July 30th. Austin's lost 4 straight away games, failing to score in the last 3, being outscored 10-1. Christian Arango saved LAFC with his 93rd minute winner on Thursday, by far LAFC's most consistent attacker since he debuted last August. 31 times, 19 more than any teammate, including Carlos Vela. In fact, Hani Mukhtar, 35, has more goals than Arango since his MLS debut last year. Austin set the playoff record-setting 38-shot performance against RSL with another 18 against Dallas on Sunday. 56 shots over 2 matches, most by a team in a 2-game span in a single postseason MLS history. Most in any 2-game span since San Jose took 64 in 2 matches in August of 2019. So your numbers, not surprising that LAFC is a huge home favorite. They are at a minus 196 in the composite. 90-minute draws a plus 366. Your draws and Austin FC is a plus 444. I'm going to be a contrarian. I'm going to go Austin just because. Sorry, Bam. Next one is the 8 o'clocker, and that one is on FS1 and Fox Deportes. 8 o'clock, which means super hyper mega pregame show on FS1, 8:25 kick in Philly at Subaru Park. Fun facts. Union and NYC meet in the Eastern Conference Final for the 2nd straight year after NYC defeated Philly 2-1 en route to winning the club's first MLS Cup, first conference final or league semi rematch from the previous season since DC and Columbus, 97 and 99. Union won both regular season meetings with NYC this season, recording a 2-0 road win March 19, 2-1 home win June 26. Wins were the first consecutive victories Philly has ever recorded against NYC, as they had just won 3 of the previous 13, with 8 of them losses prior to this season. Union entered the Eastern Conference Final on a 10-match home winning streak with the 1-0 win over Cincy in the semis. With a win, the Union would equal the longest single-season home winning streak, including playoffs in MLS history, an 11-game run by the Galaxy in 2011 that ended with a conference final win over RSL. Also on the board, Union's victory over FC Cincinnati. 4th time they advanced in the MLS Cup Playoffs. 1st time they won a match in regulation. Union needed extra time to beat the Red Bulls in the first round 2019-2021 penalty shootout to see off Nashville in the conference semi. NYC enters the Eastern Conference Final having won 5 straight. 5 consecutive wins equals the longest streak in club's MLS history from August to September 2019. NYC's win, it was their 5th consecutive road playoff game without defeat, winning 2, drawing 3, including 2 shootout wins and a shootout loss. NYC's run equals the Timbers from 15 to 18, second longest road unbeaten run in the MLS playoffs since the elimination of the breakaway shootout challenge, which we need to come back to. Chance to equal the Galaxy's league record 6 straight from 05 to 12 on Sunday. Leon Flock scored his first goal of the season in the semifinal. Scored at home. 50th MLS goal scored at home by the Union this season. 16 to hit that mark in the history, including playoffs. 11th different Union player to score at least one of those goals was Leon Flock. Maxi Morales scored the opening goal for NYC in their 3-1 win over CF Montreal. was his fourth in the postseason for NYC, surpassing David Villa and Tati Castellanos for most in club history, while his 6 playoff assists are also a club best since 2018. Maxi Morales has been involved in more than half of NYC's playoff goals, 10 of their 19. I got to go with Philly here. Alejandro Bedoya is back. So I think that'll be a catalyst in the middle. Looking at your juice box numbers, Philly's only a minus 114 at home. I find that interesting in the composite. Your 90-minute draws a plus 268. NYC is a plus 293. So that's where we are with your MLS matches. And then reminder that MLS Cup would be following shortly thereafter. And then we get into all of the dates and all the stuff that we were discussing when it comes to player movement. So we'll be back at it before you know it when it comes to Major League Soccer. All right, so when we're getting into the TV discussion and content, wonder if the Apple deal will negatively affect, as in they might go away, their current soccer shows like FC and Soccer America. Don't know. Interesting. That'll be an interesting question. What do the non-rights holders invest in Major League Soccer as a product? Or is it going to be like they treated the National Hockey League when they lost the rights to it? And it just was kind of over there someplace. And Barry Melrose and Linda Cohn talked about it every once in a while, but not consistently. Sorry about that. I need to be hydrated. I haven't hydrated for an hour and a half. Burn, maybe they'll stop ESPN FC. I think they'd keep Football Americas going. Seems very successful. Airborne DJ caught offside. A great pod if you're not familiar. Just left ESPN and are now independent. Rich Ransom, ESPN FC is more European-based. And so, of course, Abby, except pretty much the point of view of everyone here except for Rich, do not want Philly. Other action today. Let's get into viewing habits today and kind of the greatest hits for the weekend before we go. Reminder, if you missed them, had a busy day yesterday. Busy day. I will repost the links on social media. We caught up with Jen Hildreth before the NWSL Championship game. Great conversation. Great to catch up with her. She was in South Bend, Indiana, getting ready for ACC soccer. Caught up with John Arnold from Get CONCACAF. Great resource for everything going on here in this hemisphere. Very, very cool stuff. It was great to catch up with him and Doug Irwin from Greenville Triumph as they're getting ready for their playoff game against South Georgia Tormenta. So those 3 interviews went up yesterday, and I'll repost those links on social media. Later today, Thursdays with Nico on Friday will be at 2:00 here on the network, so we'll have that conversation. And we're also efforting a conversation from Sweden about USL and Sarasota next season in League 2. And so we're going to reach out to one of their founders, and he's in Sweden. So we're zooming that interview, and that'll be turned to the network this weekend. So we'll keep an eye on that stuff as well. Let's see. Soccer on TV. For today, it is College Men on the ACC network starting at 6. La Liga, Mallorca, Espanyol on ESPN Deportes at 3. College Soccer ACC Extra, 4 matches at 7. ESPN 3 has stuff from the Ohio Valley or from Missouri Valley Conference at 7 o'clock. Bundesliga 220, Championship at 250. La Liga on ESPN Plus at 255. Playoffs, the 1 match. Friday Night Football in USL Championship. San Antonio FC hosting Oakland Roots. That's at 8:30. College men start at 7 o'clock through the evening. College women, you've got conference tournament time. Southern Conference in the Ohio Valley, they are going on all over the place starting at 4 o'clock. So you've got postseason tournament play in the OVC and the SoCon. Paramount Plus has Greenock Morton and Inverness Caledonian Thistle at 2:45. That is your Friday viewing. Saturday viewing quickly. BN has Ligue 1. They have the final for the Copa Libertadores, Flamengo and Atlético Paranaense at 4 o'clock. Big CBS. Remember, big CBS and a lot of stuff going on Paramount Plus and podcasts and three-dimensional coverage on big CBS of Portland and Kansas City from Audi Field, anticipating close to a sellout. I think they had 16,000 sold, getting close to 19,000. Serie A on CBS Sports Network. NBC has Fulham and Everton at 12:30. USA Network has 3 other matches in and around the one on big NBC. BN and Espanol simulcasting everything on BN. If you don't have BN, you can go to Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here and get everything that you're looking for there in Central and South America. I'm hooked. I'm subscribed. Take it from someone who got hooked to it. ESPN Deportes, 4 matches in La Liga on Saturday. Universo simulcasting your Premier League matches. A lot of action on ESPN3 with colleges. ESPN Plus has Bundesliga, Bundesliga B, the championship, very, very early Saturday morning. La Liga quadruple header. La Liga Smart Bank at 10:05. You have the other conference semifinals on Saturday night. League One semifinals, remember, Richmond, Chattanooga is at 6 from City Stadium. Greenville and South Georgia is at 7:30 from Legacy Early. College men's soccer starts at noon all day long. College women's starts at 1 o'clock all day long. Paramount Plus is Serie A, 9 noon, 2:45. And Paramount Plus also doing activity in and around the NWSL final and the Brasileiro at 6:30. Peacock has Bournemouth, Tottenham, Fulham, and Everton. So that's your Friday and your Saturday. So let's get into juice boxes really quickly. USL Championship, since we mentioned MLS. San Antonio, big favorite at home at a -161. Lou City, a big favorite at home against Pittsburgh at a -175. Colorado Springs on the plus side, but still a favorite, hosting Sacramento Republic. Kind of struggling offensively since they sold Haji Berry to the Egyptian Premier League. Colorado Springs at a +127. Memphis, big favorite at home. We caught up with Connor Antley 2 days ago. So you can catch that interview also on the network as Tampa Bay gets ready for Memphis 901. Memphis 901 is a +108. Tampa Bay at a +202, and your 90-minute draw is a +259. League One semis, no real surprise. Richmond, a favorite at home, +129, going up against Chattanooga at a +173. Greenville at a -112, hosting South Georgia Tormenta at a +254. Your NWSL numbers, Portland Thorns, a big favorite against the underdog Kansas City Current at a -172. Other matches in England, going over the schedule briefly, a lot of matches. You got 8 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. Manchester City, big favorite on the road at Leicester. Sorry, Knicks. Spurs, a big favorite, -143 at the Vitality against Bournemouth. Brentford, a favorite at home against Wolves. Chelsea, a favorite on the road against Brighton. Crystal Palace on the minus side at home against Southampton at a -105. Newcastle at a -120 against Aston Villa. And their new coach, soon to be, Unai Emery. Fulham, a favorite at home at a +134, hosting Everton. Liverpool, a -323, hosting Leeds. Jesse Marsh feels that he has the backing of the folks above him to continue what they are doing, even though where they are in the table, apparently, from what I remember correctly, they're 8th in chances created, just not being clinical and finishing. And so that's where Leeds are, 2 games on Sunday. Arsenal, big favorite, hosting Nottingham Forest. Manchester United on the minus side at a -141, hosting West Ham. Getting into gossip, rumor, and innuendo before we go. Let's see. No Holland this weekend, at least. Thanks for the reminder about that. So I'll fix my fantasy team, Nix. Go through all of the other stuff. Abby, have a fabulous Friday. Thanks for hanging out. DJ, thanks for hanging out. Late afternoon wedding. Okay, on a Friday. That's an interesting mix. But be safe. And once again, thanks for the words here in the Twitch pitch today. Shakhtar Donetsk sporting director Carlo Nicolini says Arsenal, Man City, among a number of clubs interested in Mykhailo Mudryk, who is ridiculously talented, who would cost more than €100 million. Manchester United paid Ajax for Anthony. Real Madrid hoping to get to the finish line first with Jude Bellingham. Dortmund want to offer a contract extension, expect him to leave in the summer. That's from the 4-letter newspaper. Take that at your own peril. Newcastle United set to offer Miguel Almiron a new contract following his improvement under Eddie Howe. That comes from the Telegraph. That's a good piece of news. Denmark midfielder Pierre-Emile Højbjerg also in line to get an improved contract with Spurs, indicating they want to start talks over fresh terms with the 27-year-old. Sporting Lisbon attacking mid Marcus Edwards says the move to Portugal has been good for him, but he'd like to return to his native England. Diego Simeone insists he will not turn his back on the La Liga side despite them being knocked out of Champions League in the group stage. Once again, 4-letter paper, take it at your own peril. Fulham have made a second bid for Brazilian midfielder Pablo Maia Also taking note of Sao Paulo midfielders Rodrigo Nestor and Igor Gomes, as well as center back Luizao. Nottingham Forest interested in Maya, willing to pay the £9 million price tag, a £9 million price tag for the youngster. Manchester United monitoring Porto's keeper Diogo Costa, Bilbao and Spain stopper Unai Simon as they decide whether to trigger an extension for David De Gea. Southampton, Leicester City keeping close tabs on Zakaria Abuklal, Toulouse and Moroccan international, expected to feature in the World Cup in Qatar. Unai Emery will be given extensive funds to strengthen his squad during the January transfer window. Liverpool striker Darwin Nunez says that the 35-year-old Uruguayan teammate Luis Suarez, who played for the Reds, got in touch with him to offer advice on how to deal with playing in the Premier League. Lazio president Claudio Lotito says that Sergei Milinkovic-Savic will not be sold, will be offered a contract renewal with his current deal running through 2024. QPR boss Michael Beale turned down the chance to manage Wolves because of the upheaval that would have been associated with making the move, according to the Telegraph. Inter Milan will not sell Bastoni in January. The 23-year-old has been linked with Spurs, whose boss Antonio Conte coached him when he was at the Serie A club. Roma are plotting a move for Lyon's France's midfielder Houssem Aouar in January. So that is one stage of gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Let's check the other papers locally in England. I was close. Let's see. According to the Football Association's second annual report on the Football Leadership Diversity Code, English clubs are failing to meet their pledged targets. So we'll keep an eye on that. Avoiding the 3-letter paper and the 4-letter paper. Let's see what else is going on. Manchester United, continuing our David De Gea story. Manchester United from The Athletic considering offering De Gea a new contract on reduced terms, with the club also looking at other potential targets for the number 1 spot. We talked about those. Daily Mirror, Gareth Southgate will have Qatar's Party Central on the doorstep of their hotel and training base. Good luck. Patrice Evra told Harry Maguire not to give up on his Manchester United future, and a revised European Super League proposal could include Celtic and Rangers. Once again, that's the Daily Mirror. Jesse Marsh feels that he is 4 bad results away from losing the support of the Leeds United hierarchy. That's from the Times. Rangers captain James Tavernier insisted that Gio van Bronckhorst has the full backing of his players as their slump in performances and results continue. Guardian, residents of Qatar face the risk of persecution if they stand up for gay rights during the World Cup, according to the Human Rights Watch. Mexico has launched an official bid for the 2036 Olympics, joint statement on Wednesday. Daily Record, West Ham striker Michail Antonio has claimed a clutch of Aston Villa stars weren't having Steven Gerrard's personality during his ill-fated stay in the Midlands. So that's your run through the papers. Trying to see if there's anything else going on. So Nick's reminds me, because of that, I've got to fix my fantasy team and let you know about everything else. Trying to check the Big 5 leagues and see if there are any matchups this weekend in, say, Ligue 1. PSG is hosting Troy tomorrow at 11, and they're at a minus 1,000. But standings right now in Ligue 1, once again, no surprise. PSG, 10 wins, 12 matches, 2 draws, 5 points clear of Lens and Lorient, who are both at 8-3-1, and then it's 8 points to Rennes, who have won 4 in a row. Also in Germany, let's take a peek at the Bundesliga standings and let you know there that it is still Union Berlin after 11 matches. Lost their last time out. Bayern is a point behind at 22. Freiburg at 21. Eintracht Frankfurt at 20. Dortmund at 19. Mainz at 18. So there's madness. Let's face it. There's 1 point separating the next guy behind you and the 1 point separating the folks above you. But Union Berlin so far have only given up 8 goals in 11 matches. They've won 7 of their first 11. Very, very cool start for them. So they get to Borussia Mönchengladbach on Sunday morning, and they are a plus 108 at home to continue winning. Heavyweights, Bayern Munich, big favorite, hosting Mainz tomorrow morning. Leipzig favored at home, and Eintracht Frankfurt is a home dog to Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund's at a plus 140. Also looking on the board, let me go to Spain really quickly. Mexico, if you missed it last night, the first go-round of the playoff in the Apertura between Pachuca and Toluca, was no contest. Pachuca won 5-1 at Toluca, and so they hold that 4-goal advantage going into the final, the second leg of the Apertura playoff, and that is on Sunday night at 9:30 at Pachuca. And obviously, Pachuca, big favorite at a -200 there as well. So Spain will be the last one that we grab a hold of really quickly. And in La Liga, it is standings out of the blocks. Real Madrid, 31 points. Barcelona at 28. Barcelona, once again, not making it to the knockouts in Champions League. Atleti is 5 points back of Barcelona in third. Real Sociedad at 22 points in fourth. Betis is at 20 points in fifth. Bilbao, right now on goal difference, is sixth place. European is on the Conference League spot, the sixth one with Athletic Bilbao. So that is your rundown of everything. And once again, thanks for everything this morning. Thanks for all of y'all today. And once again, it's great to be here hanging out with all of you guys. Thanks to Michael Parkhurst, our friends at Beyond Goals, for being a part of everything on a Freestyle Friday. And once again, a reminder that you've got all of the college action this weekend. Keep an ear out for Jason and for Mateen Rod as they are doing activity with SoCon and Sunbelt and Atlantic Sun and a lot of other folks. So just if you have a chance to catch up with some of the voices that are tied to us here at STH, give it a listen because we're getting toward the playoffs. End of conference play, getting into conference tournaments and those kinds of things on the college game. College Showcase will be out this weekend, as will all of the other stuff that we've got. Once again, reminder, Thursdays with Nico on a Friday at 2 o'clock, and we're efforting our visit with our friends at USL Sarasota, and we'll post that one tomorrow as well. So once again, another great week here. Everybody here at SDH, thanks for hanging out with me, and thanks for hanging out with everybody here for Jarrett, for Nick, for me, and for Jason. I'm just John. Thanks for hanging out for another round of soccer down here, for another week of soccer down here. And since it is the end of another week and the end of another show, mucho platial, that means I get to do this. We'll see you Monday. Or maybe the close instead of the open. How about this one?